Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Abraham. I'm the president and founder of Accepted, and I'm going to be presenting Get Accepted to Harvard Business School today, or this evening. A little bit about me. When I was a little girl, I didn't dream of becoming an admissions consultant. I didn't know of the concept. And as I graduated college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do professionally. However, as a college senior, I loved being a writing tutor. Years later, when my children were young and my husband and I realized we needed to make some more money and I needed to be the one doing it, I decided to return to being an editor and writing tutor. I put an ad in the UCLA Bruin and started getting business. To my surprise, I was frequently asked to edit grad school personal statements and application essays. They were a whole lot more fun than research papers, and I sensed demand for a business focused on graduate admissions. Using my own MBA and a lot of sweat equity, I decided in 1994 to focus on admissions editing and advising, and Accepted was born. A couple of years later, in 1996, as an experiment, I put up a website, www.accepted.com, and the business exploded. It grew quickly beyond what I could provide myself in terms of services, and I began to add consultants and expand the nature of services that we offered. I found and find the work of helping young adults clarify their ideas as they pursue their dreams incredibly rewarding, and have been at it for now almost 26 years. Accepted has helped thousands gain acceptance to elite graduate programs around the world, including, of course, Harvard Business School. I'm looking forward to sharing my 25 plus years of admissions experience with you. But before we begin, I want to mention a few to-dos that will help you maximize your time here and get the most out of the webinar. If you haven't already downloaded your webinar worksheet, I'd suggest that you do so now. Carly, can you again post great. Carly just posted the link to it if you haven't downloaded it. My personal recommendation is that you actually print it out and use it to take notes. I'm going to ask a few questions this is item number 2. I'm going to ask a few questions during the presentation and ask you to raise your hand in response. You can do so, as I'm sure by now you know, by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom of your control panel, or on the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Number 3, we're going to use the question window for your questions, which you can post at any time during my presentation. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the presentation, and I'll be joined then by Natalie Greenblatt-Epstein, one of our most experienced MBA admissions consultants with tons of insight and expertise, and she'll be sharing that with you then. Number 4, if I ask an open-ended question, please post your responses in the chat window. It just is easier for me if we reserve the question window for your questions and the chat window for your responses. Number 5, you can win. We're going to have a fun contest towards the end of the webinar based on content presented during webinar. So stay tuned. Again, don't get too comfortable. When you leave, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. I value your feedback. I review it all. So let us know how we're doing. Let's test that hand-raising skill. I know we've all become experts at Zoom, but let's do it anyways. Please raise your hand if you are here because business school, and specifically HBS, will whisk you on your way to the career of your dreams. Again, please raise your hand, click on that hand icon if HBS will whisk you on your way to the career of your dreams. Okay, yeah, well, most of you are here for the right reasons, and you know how to use Zoom after 3 months after the COVID pandemic hit the United States or the world for that matter. It's more than 3 months for some of you. Last housekeeping item, and this is the applicant's favorite. Accepted has a special for today's webinar registrants, and I'm going to tell you what it is now so you don't have to be anxiously waiting to find out. You can save hundreds of dollars. You can have $500 off a 1 or 2 school package. The coupon code is coupon code is HBS for me. And a 3 school package, you can get $800 off. It's three or more school package. Again, the coupon code is HBS for me. The URL where you can access this special is accepted.com/MBA package. Now, write this information down because you will not find it on the website. It's here. Again, write it down, make a note so that you can take advantage of it. Before we start, I want to get a better sense of where you are at in the application process and where you're at geographically for that matter. So in the chat window rather, can you please tell me where you are geographically? City and state if you're in the United States, city and country if you're outside the United States. In the chat window, please. Brisbane, Australia. Okay. Charlotte, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, New York, Sydney, Australia. Two Aussies. Great. My daughter-in-law is from Australia. Boston. Now she's living in Boston. North Carolina, Sydney, New York, United States. Okay. San Francisco, Peru, Sacramento, California, Nepal. Whoa. London, Orlando, Florida, Houston, Texas. Anybody from Los Angeles? Columbus, Georgia. Carly, that's close to you. Abuja, Nigeria. What time is it there, Don? It's the middle of the night, isn't it? I'm impressed. Lagos, Nigeria. Whoa. Okay. You guys are almost neighbors. Bogota, Colombia. Welcome. Welcome from near and far. Whoa. I never cease to be amazed at the geographic diversity that these webinars attract. Virginia, United States. Welcome. Again, welcome to everyone from near and far. And now for our first poll. How committed are you to applying to Harvard? The options are on your screen, and they are definitely 1 a.m. Well, again, thank you. I doubly appreciate your coming. The options are definitely, probably, maybe, and doubt it, but I'd love you to convince me otherwise. Okay, again, the options are definitely, probably, maybe, and doubt it, but I'd love you to convince me otherwise. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With 82% having voted, we have a very active crowd here today. 69% are definite, 21% are probable, 10% are maybe, and nobody wants to be convinced that they're going to apply. So this is actually a somewhat more committed group than the group I had in the morning in terms of the middle two tiers. The definitely is a little smaller, not a lot though. Okay, very interesting. The next question is, where are you at in the application process? Are you planning to apply to Harvard round 1, planning to apply this cycle round 2, or hoping to matriculate in 2022 or later, or not sure? Okay, we're getting a clear winner here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, with 88% having voted. Wow, really is a great crowd. We have 45% are round 1, 13% are round 2, 32% are hoping to matriculate in 2022 or later, and 10% are just not sure. Okay, we actually, you folks are a little bit more focused on later applications than this morning's group. Again, we're round 1, round 2 next year. We're happy to have you. On the last poll, just asks kind of what you're working in, okay? So here we go. How many of you are in financial services, consulting, technology, or other? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close the poll. With 91% having voted, we have 22% in financial services, 19% in consulting, 22% in tech, and 38% in other. Yeah, that's pretty much like this morning. Okay, thank you very much. Raise your hand, please, if you would like to know the guaranteed route to HBS. Yeah. Yep, that's most of you. That's most of you, to be sure. Unfortunately, there is none. I'm not going to tell you one. I'm going to tell you one because none exists, and you'll find out why later in the webinar, towards the end of the webinar. I can't say that the steps I'm going to outline today will guarantee your acceptance at Harvard Business School, but they will certainly enhance your chances. The plan for the rest of the webinar is to go through Accepted's 4-part framework for a successful MBA application and apply that framework to Harvard Business School. You can use the strategy framework on other top programs too, and for 2+2. And you can, and the tactics I'm going to discuss are going to be strictly geared to Harvard Business School's application. Now, you're going to see a lot of screenshots. The only one that we know for sure is for this year is the essay question, but I've also been told that they are anticipating very little change to the application for the upcoming cycle. So the screenshots are from last year. I don't have the upcoming year's screenshots. I'm also going to, in the course of the webinar, issue several caveats and warnings. And the first one's coming right now. You're not going to get into Harvard by using spin, it's sleight of hand. You're not going to get in with makeup. Makeup doesn't really cover the wrinkles. Don't believe it. Waving magic wands won't do it. You need to submit a substantive application. And substance, in my mind, means competitive qualifications combined with an effective presentation of those qualifications. In other words, you have to demonstrate fit. Your overriding aim is to show that you belong at Harvard Business School. Now, let's dive into the nitty-gritty. How do you intend to show that you belong? In the chat window, please. How do you intend to show that you belong at Harvard Business School? What are you going to tell them or show them? Great leadership potential. Very good, John. Excellence and commitment to leadership. Good, Daniel. Anybody else? Must have thought about it. Highlighting the impact I made personally and professionally. Excellent. Leadership achievements in my community. Excellent, Henry. Diverse background. Okay, Irina. My leadership, extracurriculars, and drive to make a difference in my community. Very good. Diversity in thought and background. You're all hitting on parts of the framework. Excellence in how I stand out. Okay, you're all hitting on parts of the framework. But what I'm going to try and show you with the framework is that it's not just one or two things. It's four kind of categories of, and intellectual rigor is definitely part of it, Henry. That four categories that you have to make sure your application covers, okay? So let's get going and dive into the content here. The first part of the framework is demonstrate that you can do the work and excel. And almost none of you mentioned that. I think Henry was the only one. In Harvard's words, it's you have to show analytical aptitude and appetite. The easiest way is through your undergraduate transcript and test score. And you want to be ideally at or above the averages for accepted students for both grades and test score. However, it's not always so easy to do that, right? A lot of you are not going to be above Harvard's average. So how are you going to deal with that? How can you convince Harvard to accept you with below average grades? Well, first realize that by its very nature, an average means that some are below and some are above. That's just the way it works with the math. So don't look at the average as either a threshold or a ceiling. But do recognize that the further away you are below the average, and if both your grades and test scores are below average, the less likely it is that you can effectively do the work. So if your grades are a little below average or your quant background is weak, well, you can try and show that your grades are not really a representation of your abilities today. You can take business-related courses and earn A's in them if you have a problematic GPA or a lack of quant courses. You may want to consider a certificate like the CFA if it's relevant to your career goals. If your quant skills are weak, if you're the proverbial poet or you haven't taken a math class since high school, but your grades are good, consider something like MBAmath.com or quant courses at a local college. Statistics for business, calculus if you have the prerequisites, economics 1, accounting 1. MOOCs are also possible, but they don't have the credibility if what you're trying to do is show that you know how to apply yourself and get good grades. HBS Online is an excellent option at Harvard Business School if you're trying to, again, show that you can handle the course load. A high test score may mitigate a low GPA, or sometimes can. Here you see the median numbers total and broken down for the major parts of the GMAT and the GRE. If you are, raise it. If you're not sure whether you should retake or not, please see either of these two resources. While they are referencing the GMAT, the advice applies to GRE also. And what about analytical aptitude and appetite? Is that the same as grades and test score? Not exactly. The appetite part of that implies a certain curiosity, intellectual rigor. And your transcript can show that. If you had a minor that was very different from your major, or the courses you took showed an exploration and intellectual curiosity, but it's not the same. The grades and test scores are definitely the objective elements of the application, but not exclusively representing analytical aptitude and appetite. Also recognize that communication skills are critical for Harvard Business School's, quote, highly verbal environment and case-based method. Per HBS, we look for individuals who enjoy lively discussion and debate, close quote. And that enjoyment of lively discussion can come through via essays, your resume, your recommendations, your transcripts, extracurricular commitments, etc. So that's also part of that analytical aptitude and appetite. Somehow, some way, you need to show that you can do the work effectively at Harvard Business School and not struggle to either communicate or calculate. That's the first part of the framework. Number two, second part of the framework. Have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from HBS and how you intend to use it. Why is your post, and I'd like you to answer this question for me in the chat window, please. Why is your post-MBA goal important at all? Why do they care what you want to do after you get a degree? Employability, that's part of it. Sure, they want to make sure you're employable. The future of my continent depends on it. I don't know about that. School employment stats, that's part of it. Is there a little bit more altruistic reason? They want students who will be impactful in the next generation of leaders. Absolutely true. Career growth, diversity, fit. They want to make sure, that they can help you succeed. They want to have happy alumni. They want alumni, they want to know that they can help you achieve your goal. Because if they can't, you're probably going to be a frustrated student and alum. So that's one of the reasons. And the other is very much along the lines of what most of you are saying. They want to know that you're going to be a person who's going to make a difference in the world. And if you have no such intention, you're not going to do it. It's hard enough to make a difference when you intend to do it. So Harvard asks for intended post-MBA information. Now, the two top boxes, industry and function, are probably there for statistical purposes. And it's briefly tell us more about your career aspirations that's kind of going to give you your chance to show that you have some ambitious goals that Harvard can help you achieve. A classic goal for an MBA application, Harvard or any others, is represented by the two top boxes. What industry do you want to work in, and what function do you want to perform? And again, function is not the same as what you want to study. It's what you want to do. The 500-character box, briefly tell us more about your career aspirations, gives you the opportunity to tell them more about the direction you intend to go in. Harvard, in the words of its previous director, D. Leopold, does not want a laminated life plan. It wants to see direction. And this box, this very open-ended question with very little space, gives you opportunity to discuss greater career aspirations and goals, or why you developed this goal very succinctly. How did you decide you want to pursue this end? Think about what you really want Harvard to know about your career aspirations. You're going to have different boxes for the job history and community service. And you want all the elements of the application as much as possible to complement each other so that the application as a whole tells a story. And that story probably culminates around here. Obviously, you have to be succinct and to the point. Admissions should be able to connect the dots between where you've been and what you want to do via Harvard's program, career strengths, and extracurricular opportunities. For some, that's going to be really easy. Maybe you want to move up in consulting, for example, and you can write about the impact you intend to have as you move up at a top consulting firm, or perhaps as you branch out and found your own consulting firm. How are you going to do things differently? What niche do you intend to fill? What flaw do you intend to correct? If the connection between your past and desired future via the MBA isn't quite as obvious, make it clearer. You don't need to abandon or hide a non-traditional career path or a change, especially if it's distinctive. Just make a logical case for it. So for example, a bioengineer who worked for a biotech company in medical devices now wants to get an MBA so that they can move into general management or perhaps launch a startup. That is a logical kind of change from a technical role to a general management role. But it all makes sense because Harvard Business School provides a general management degree. So again, don't be afraid of a career change. Most MBAs are career changers on some level. Nobody wants to go back and do what they did before. Make that case and don't be afraid of a distinctive goal. So the first part of the framework is show them you can do the work. The second part of the framework is have a goal that requires a Harvard MBA. The third part of the framework is show that you share Harvard's values and have the character it seeks. Now, Harvard is extraordinarily clear about what it seeks from applicants. The first thing it wants is a habit of leadership. And I believe this is the most important of the three criteria. They're all important when you're applying to Harvard, but I think this is really what's going to separate the adults from the children, okay? When I was visiting Harvard several years ago, I had a meeting with a Harvard professor, lasted about an hour, and somewhere in the middle of the meeting, he asked me, among your clients that have been accepted to Harvard Business School, what do you see as the common thread? I was kind of surprised by the question. Actually, I didn't expect it. And I thought for a minute, and I said, leadership and impact. And he smiled, and the conversation moved on. And before I left, I said, you know, you asked me this question, but I want to ask you the question. You obviously know far more Harvard Business School students than I do. He's been teaching there for many years. And he smiled again, and he said, I smiled when you answered because it's exactly what I would have said. So clearly, leadership in an impactful way is critical at Harvard Business School. It's also critical, by the way, for those of you who want to move beyond Harvard and pursue a career in consulting, which we didn't ask about that at the beginning, but I assume that some of you do. Keith Bevins, head of recruiting at Bain and a former guest on Admission Straight Talk, when he was describing what he wants to see in resumes, he noted very emphatically that he doesn't want to just see descriptions of responsibilities. He wants to see about the impact you've had, the achievements you've had. He wants you to go beyond the responsibilities to show that you are a person of impact who makes a difference. Now, the second of Harvard's three criteria is analytical aptitude and appetite. This is not just test taking, as I said earlier. It involves critical thinking and a desire to learn and analyze. In Harvard's words, and I'm quoting now, our case and field-based methods of learning depend upon the active participation of prepared students who can assess, analyze, and act upon complex information within often ambiguous contexts, close quote. And of course, that's what business leaders have to do. But on a deeper level, what they're looking for here is for your ability to look at events and learn. Can you learn from and change after mistakes? Can you learn after and change as a result of successes? Can you pivot? Can you grow? This is what they're looking for. This is also part of analytical aptitude and appetite that is not reflected in your grades and transcript. Then the third of Harvard's criteria is engage community citizenship. Now, the workplace can be a tough place for young people to show leadership and impact. It's frequently easier for younger professionals to make a difference off the job than on. Ideally, you want to be able to show that you've made a difference in both locales or both venues, but don't focus exclusively on professional contribution and impact, because then you'll miss this whole element of engaged community citizenship. So let's take a look when you talk about community citizenship or community service. Let's talk about what it is, first of all. I define it as commitment and responsibility for a group. It's not the same as being a nice person, and it's not showing up at Habitat Humanity for 4 hours, before you apply. It involves commitment and assumption of responsibility. Now, how would you define your community? Some people define it geographically, and it's the area in which they live. That's fine. That's definitely one way in which to define it. But it can also be defined in terms of sports commitments, ethnic groups, religious groups, political, geographic, alumni, or professional associations that you are a part of. You don't have to join a specific group. You can also start or launch a new initiative. But remember, it's about service involves commitment and responsibility to a group. It's not a one-off. and it's not the same as having a membership card in your hip pocket. And again, you don't have to join. You can also start or launch an initiative. That's perfectly acceptable. And Lord knows these days, there's endless opportunities for community service. Here's one of my warnings and caveats. There's a big difference between mouthing platitudes about service, for example, spitting back websites, like the quote I just gave you, and showing that you really and truly share the values. The former, the spitting back, is just waving a magic wand or putting lipstick on a pig, and it just isn't pretty. But examples in your essay, bullet points in your resume, good examples from your recommenders and letters of recommendation, and your responses to interview questions if you're invited to interview, if you're lucky enough to be invited to interview, I might add, must also demonstrate these qualities. And now I'd like you to write down for yourselves. You don't have to put it in the chat window or the question window. Write down ways in which you can demonstrate a habit of leadership. That means more than one example. Okay. So you don't have to spit back the phrases at all. You do have to show that you will contribute and take advantage of Harvard Business School's 6 differentiators. Now, I'm going to pause here so that you can write these things down. Okay. What would be some examples in different areas of your life, different arenas of your life, where you can demonstrate leadership? Because that's going to be what creates a habit, more than one. Okay. So how are you going to take advantage of those 6 differentiators at Harvard I just mentioned? Well, that's going to be something that each of you individually is going to have to address. I would say that you don't have to show a relationship with each one of the 6, but I would say at least 3 should be something that you consider important in your business school education and going forward. Another warning, if you focus on Harvard's ranking or brand, you're going to end up obscuring this fit aspect of admissions, and that will contribute to you focusing on the wrong things. The result will be that you just blend in. When you want to stand out in a positive way, you want to show that you have something distinctive and in terms of experience and perspective to contribute to your class. Harvard has lots of applicants, and it's probably going to have more next year, and it can be choosy. Last year, when application volume was down, it rejected 8 out of every 9 applicants. And even if that ratio is slightly more favorable than the previous years and slightly less favorable than you're probably going to face next year, it leads to my last strategic point. The 4th part of the framework. Demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to class discussions and field experiences, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud to have you as a member of their community. They're very, very proud of their community. So how can you do that? Well, first of all, you want to reveal a habit, not only of leadership, but of past contribution and impact through your essay, your resume, your activity history, your interview, your letters of recommendation. In other words, the entire application. Have you contributed in the past? That's really, really important, because a fundamental assumption of admissions is that past behavior predicts future behavior. If you've been a contributor, a giver in the past, that's great, because HBS wants givers, not takers. So at this point, I'd like to ask you, where have you made a difference into an organization that you were part of? And you can please post this in the chat window, because I'd like to, I'll comment on your examples. I'm going to give a couple of examples, but let's see, where have you made a difference? So an example could be that you captained your college baseball team to the first championship in 10 years, or you led a marketing initiative for your product and increased sales by 10% each of the 3 years after it was introduced. There's the sixth differentiator. Somebody's asking for it. Okay, so Gulmira says, I'm creating a cookbook of Uyghur recipes, I'm sorry if I mispronounce, so that I can help the world understand the importance of preserving our culture. Okay, that sounds interesting. Definitely distinctive. You're welcome. Anybody else? Where else can, okay, here we go. Daniel, influencing policies and creating initiatives that transform the arts sector in my country. Okay, but I realize that you can't get terribly specific just because of space limits. You're welcome. But I'd like more details. How are you influencing policies? How many people are you meeting with? Are you organizing others to create a movement? What kinds of initiatives? How many people are involved? How big is the art market? How much money is involved? How many people are involved? Specifics count. Or Brendan writes, I led my company's first ever VR project and now manage the global rollout of the technology. That's very interesting. What percentage of revenue at your company is going to come from the VR rollout? That is an enormous measure or reflection of the trust that's being put upon you, Brendan. So make sure you mention that. Anybody else want to give an example? Launched an enterprise-wide innovation tournament to stimulate grassroots innovation at a Fortune 15 company. Over 100 employees across the U.S. participated in the inaugural tournament to combat mental health crisis. Very good. Very good. I like the specifics there and the quantification. Wonderful. Founded microfund investing in diverse founders. One investment, 80K. Okay. Okay. Good. Again, some examples would liven it up, but I realize you probably don't have the room here. Developing a new community relationship between my nonprofit and local Rotary Club, which I joined during my career. All right, again, how much money is your nonprofit raising? How many people is your nonprofit helping? What's the goal of the nonprofit? All right, I hope you, I'm going to move on because I want to leave room for time for the Q&A. But I hope you folks are getting the idea. Do you present yourself distinctively so that you will naturally stand out? Do you present yourself with the concreteness so that your achievements and accomplishments become so much more impressive? Focus on specifics that will allow you to naturally stand out, that will reveal you as the unique individual you truly are. And now I'd like to have another poll to do a little exercise, okay? Great, here we go. And you can choose multiple answers here. The only one you can't choose is none of the above and any of the others above it, okay? So let's, please, which are, do you see the poll? Yeah, okay, now you guys see the poll. All right. Again, there's 2 polls here. And you can choose multiple options. The first question is, how many of you during or since college have, the options are worked in finance or consulting, 2, traveled outside your home country, 3, volunteered, or none of the above. The second question is, how many of you during or since college have worked for a hedge fund focused on emerging markets, consulted for pharmaceutical companies exploring entry to new markets, volunteered as a camp counselor for a wheelchair-bound, ventilator-dependent teen, or none of the above. Okay, and we have 77% having voted. Let's get it up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can close the poll. We now have 82% having voted. Again, you're a fantastic audience. And the results are 64%. 64% are in finance, 76% or consulting, have traveled outside their home country, 79% have volunteered in some capacity, and only 6% say none of the above. On the second question, it's 3% have worked for a hedge fund, 6% consulted for a pharmaceutical company, 6% volunteered as a camp counselor, and 88% say none of the above. Now, in the chat window, please, what's the difference between the first question and the second question, or the options that are part of those questions? In the chat window, please. Specificity, right. The second set of questions are much more specific than the first one. Unique experiences, achievements with quantifiable accomplishments. Yeah, actually, there's not so much quantifying there, but unique, distinctive, specific. Okay, what happens when we talk in specifics? A little bit, yeah. Henry does a little bit speak more to problem solving. Makes it memorable. Very good, Victor. What else does it do? A story can be a story, a little bit more there. That's true. More compelling, absolutely. It distinguishes you. It makes you stand out. If you look at the first questions, you're all the same, right? There were only 6% that none of this applied to. All right, 64%, 76%, 79%. The second one was the exact opposite because of the specifics. You individuate when you talk in specifics. And that's really, really important if you're trying to stand out in an intensely competitive applicant pool. All right, so when you're talking about what you do, are you an engineer or a transportation engineer or a biomedical engineer, device engineer? Are you a consultant or a healthcare consultant or a transportation consultant? Did you volunteer or did you found a new organization to address a specific need in your community, however you define your community? Now, why am I making such a big deal about distinctive contribution? Because admissions is a two-step process. The first step is determining the qualified. And at a school like Harvard, there are always too many qualified applicants. Selecting from among the qualified to create a diverse class and rich learning environment, that's the second part of the admissions process. And that injects a subjective element to the admissions and selection process. And it's the reason there is no 100% guaranteed formula or recipe, as I said at the beginning. It was actually fascinating. I was at the ACAC conference a couple of weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago now, and we had a build a class exercise between consultants and admissions directors. And the directors were a little bit, how should I say, they were a little uncomfortable with the exercise in my group because they said, we don't know the other people that we could be choosing from, that we're building a class with. So that part of building class and selection process is a really, really important part of the process. HBS admissions office wants to create the most interesting, diverse class possible, quote, a dynamic environment that mirrors the breadth and depth of our world economy, close quote. That's a pretty ambitious goal. And the implication from the selection process is that Harvard has no reason to admit an applicant, here we go, an applicant who lacks something distinctive to contribute. Again, you want to stand out in a really positive way. Now, let's review the 4 strategic steps you need to think about before and while putting your application together. These should be like a goalposts for you. Number 1, demonstrate you can do the work and excel. Number 2, reveal a goal that requires an HBS MBA. Number 3, show you share the values and have the qualities that HBS seeks, and then establish your ability to contribute a distinctive element to your class. Now let's look at the elements of the HBS application. Let's start with the resume and job or activity history. Harvard wants a 1 to 2 page resume, and it also has several boxes for your job and activity history. This is the job window for one position. It's going to ask you for 3, your 3 most recent ones. In both the resume, which is a snapshot, a summary, as well as the job history where you have a little bit more room, you must show impact and contribution throughout. They are looking for evidence of leadership and achievement. In your resume and employment sections, focus on achievements and contributions. Even when you have the box asking about your role and responsibilities, don't just give a list of your tasks or your responsibilities. Show how you exceeded, okay? So for example, did you lead a team or did you lead a cross-functional team of 5 as the youngest team member? Quantify impact whenever possible. Think of that exercise we did just a couple of minutes ago. Show how you went beyond your responsibilities. Now for the activities, Harvard asks you to list up to 3 extracurricular activities in order of importance to you. So obviously you're going to list the 3 most important, and then ask you to tell them about, and I'm quoting, the things you do while not at work or in class. Include other activities like community service here as well. So it could be hobbies also. We use this section to get a sense of the leadership roles and activities that attract you. As always, Harvard Business School is looking for leadership, and they're also trying to get to know you. They do have a residential community, and they want to believe that everybody's going to play nicely in the sandbox. Okay, let's go on to the essay. This we know is the question for the class of 2022. As we review your application, what more would you like us to know as we consider your candidacy for the Harvard Business School MBA program? There's no word limit for this question. We think you know what guidance we're going to give here. Don't overthink, overcraft, overwrite, just answer the question. in clear language that those of us who don't know your world can understand. So I think with this question, you really have to ask yourself, what do you really want HBS to know that isn't reflected in your application? What are you truly proud of? Think of Harvard's 3 criteria, right? Analytical aptitude and appetite, engaged community citizenship, and now I'm forgetting the third one, and habit of leadership. So that was the most important one. Those criteria, your essay could provide context for events listed in your resume or activity list. It could be a challenge you faced in achieving what you've achieved. It could be a pivotal moment in your life that set your direction. It should be something that only you can write. And it should be something you want to share with the Harvard Business School Admissions Committee. By the way, I think that Harvard's question really should be in the back of your mind as you answer any business school's questions, essay questions. The other schools are directing you more in terms of what you have to respond with their question, but you also have to think about what do you want them to know. Now, there's a place on your worksheet, if you did print it out, where you can jot down some ideas for how you'd like to answer this question. And take a minute now to do so. What the essay should not be, it shouldn't be a copy and paste of your response to Stanford's What Matters to You Most and Why. It also should not be a kitchen sink approach of everything you want them to know. Choose the most critical and impressive. It should not be a resume in prose or some superficial grand summary of information found elsewhere. It shouldn't be a summary of your application at all. Although there is no word limit, be concise. Harvard and most busy people value concision. Don't write more than necessary. Harvard also provides you a 500-character additional information section. And the instructions are, please share additional information here if you need to clarify any information provided in the other sections of your application. This is not meant to be used as an additional essay. Please limit your additional information to the space in this section. Use the additional information section to provide context for something that needs context or explaining or clarification. That's what it's for. They don't want more, and they're not giving you room for more. Let's say you're lucky enough to be invited to an interview. Yay! Your chances of acceptance have gone up, and you need to prepare for it. Prepare for a probing interview with someone who has closely reviewed your application. They may ask you to connect the dots in your life story, explain decisions and pivot points in your life, and respond thoughtfully to an unexpected question. To prepare for your Harvard interview, I suggest you listen to the podcast with Ida Valentine, .com/311. It was a fascinating interview for a variety of reasons, and some of them not having to do at all with the Harvard Business School interview, but she did give outstanding advice for preparing for the HBS interview. Evaluate your fitness. And so be prepared for that unexpected question. What is the purpose of the HBS interview? Is to evaluate your fitness for learning in a case-based method and to assess your fit with the HBS community. So prepare to tie your past to HBS and your future via the interview. Prepare stories that show you as a decision maker and a leader, because remember, part of the point of the case method is that it puts you in the shoes of the protagonist, the decision maker. So you have lots of experience making decisions, and past behavior predicts future behavior. So show that you've already done it. Prepare stories and anecdotes that show you as a leader. Prepare examples that show you in a community or group setting and as a giver and a contributor, not a taker. You want to be seen as a person who has made a difference. Now, Harvard, one of the unique elements in Harvard's application is the interview reflection, and it's Harvard's attempt to give you the last word. So after you leave your Harvard interview, you have 24 hours to submit your interview reflections. And I suggest you maybe go to a coffee shop, decompress for a little bit, take a walk, but mostly think. Think about the interview said or wish they had asked. And also, it's an email. Demonstrate how you can communicate when you don't have the time to spend weeks crafting an essay. All right, so let's now go to the contest I promised you at the beginning. Let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to HBS. Show that you belong at Harvard. The first three to answer the next question each gets a 15-minute consultation with me. And I'd like you, the question has multiple parts, and I'd like you to answer all in one response because otherwise I just can't track it. Did my voice go out on the interview reflection part? Because if not, I'll go over it again. Yes? Anybody else? Yes? Raise your hand if you didn't hear me during the interview reflection. Okay, I'll go back. Okay, let's start from the interview reflections. No problem. When you leave your interview, I suggest you just take a minute and think about what went on in your interview. You can take a few minutes to decompress. That's also fine. Take a walk, have a cup of coffee, but then sit down and think about the interview you had. Where did you think you answered well? What did you wish you had been asked? What do you feel you need to clarify? It's for those things you wish you had said or wish they had asked. Also, keep in mind, this is an email. Demonstrate how you can communicate when you don't have the time to spend weeks crafting an essay. Now, let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to HBS. Show that you belong at Harvard. And the first three to answer my next question are each going to get a 15-minute consultation with me, one-on-one. And also the question has three parts, or please answer the whole thing in one box, because if you hit enter in the middle, I can't track it, okay? So the question is, what are Harvard's, and answer the chat window, what are Harvard's 3 criteria for admission? Okay, Andrew got it. Irina got it. And Victor got it. Okay. Carly, do you have their names? Thank you very much. Just to summarize, the 3 are habit of leadership, intellectual aptitude and appetite, and engaged community citizenship. Now let's review the 4 ways to show that you belong at Harvard Business School. 1, present the academic credentials that show you can do the work and excel. 2, have a goal that requires a Harvard MBA. 3, show that you meet Harvard's criteria and share its values. And 4, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute distinctively to class discussions and teamwork, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud to have you as an alum. So those are the 4 parts of the framework. And I have a final piece of advice before we head towards the Q&A. A little bit more than that, actually. The admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. Don't try to craft, fake, or fool. The best presentation of you is an authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams, keeping in mind the 4 things that will make Harvard want you. Now, at this point, I want to ask you, in the chat window, please, what was the most valuable piece of information advice for you up to this point in today's presentation? Again, what was the most valuable piece of information, advice, or insight for you in today's presentation? The importance of connecting the dots, great. Seeing the screenshots of the other short answer questions was very helpful, good. Highlighting the specifics of leadership, thank you. The importance of quantifying impact, great. Glad you got that, Nick. Importance of leadership and impact, I'm glad you got that, Jamal. Anybody else want to share? Importance of, not quite sure what the last word there is. I think it got cut off. Highlighting habit of leadership, wonderful. Sharing a memorable story. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Zach. Aligning values, the importance of impact, and connecting your personal story with HBS values. Perfect, Daniel. Yes, Kelly, we'll be sharing the recording with you. Definitely. Values back to community. Connect the dots to the admissions committee, where I am now, where I want to do, and how does HBS fit into the picture? Importance of being your authentic self. Great. I'm so glad. Realize that a successful Harvard Business School application requires all four elements of this four-part framework, not just one and not just 3 out of the 4, because to get accepted to Harvard Business School, you need to show that you both belong at Harvard, and that's parts 1 through 3, and stand out in the applicant pool. This framework gives you the what of a successful application. What you need now, however, is the how applied to your individual circumstances. To be accepted, you need to get accepted and work with one of our outstanding consultants. You want to show that you both belong at Harvard or whatever MBA programs you are aiming for and stand out in the applicant pool. We want to guide you in creating an application that as a whole spotlights your strengths and mitigates your weaknesses, an application that accomplishes everything we've discussed here today. Now, here's what you get when you work with Accepted. You get access to expertise and experience. You can reduce your stress, save time, optimize your school choice and application, and mitigate weaknesses. That's what you get when you take advantage of Accepted's team of outstanding consultants. Now, some may say Accepted is expensive, and we are definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff, one of whom you're going to meet momentarily. However, there are also expensive risks associated with not using Accepted. Reapplication can easily cost a couple of $1,000s and more if you need to retake your GMAT and decide to hire a tutor. You have 1 additional year of pre-MBA earnings, and that can cost in the 5 figures in dollars. And then there's the potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network, and that could cost you lifetime 5 or 6 figures. Every year, we work with applicants who talked to us a year earlier and decided after taking the do-it-yourself approach and getting rejected that they wanted to work with us. But they would have been better off working with us initially, and frankly, so would you. But enough from me. What did Accepted's clients say? I did find out just over a week ago that I was admitted to HBS. Super exciting news. I definitely would not have been successful without you. Or the next one, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. And yesterday I got the good news, and it was from Harvard. I'm absolutely thrilled. Amidst the euphoria, I want to take a moment to thank Accepted, Jennifer in particular, for all the help and in ways that went beyond admissions consulting. Or this one. It's a wonderful feeling to have been accepted by Harvard, a school that until now I had only dreamed of attending. But sincerely, I could not have done it without the help of Cindy. She made sense of all my confused ideas and inspired me to write well. But the best part was her editing. It was almost magical. And then the last one, although I just got admitted to Wharton, I already decided that I will be joining at HBS. This is like a dream come true. I already recommended my friends to work with you when they plan to apply. Different people, different challenges, and different fears. Same result at Harvard Business School. Now, I can't say that all our clients are accepted to HBS, but we'd sure like to use the same magic of expert, insightful, individual advising that we use with these clients to help you get accepted to HBS. Imagine yourself in their shoes, happily sharing the news with friends and family, attending an admit weekend in Boston, planning to start at Harvard Business School in the fall, and pursuing your dream career with Harvard forever on your resume and the HBS Alumni Network as your network. On the screen, you can see exactly what they did and what I suggest you do. It's June now. There is time before Harvard's round 1 deadline to work with us. Contact us ASAP, and we'd be happy to help you from scratch or review and edit your essays. Our goal is to guide you through all 4 parts of this critical framework and show that you both belong at Harvard and are a standout in the applicant pool. Take these steps to work with an experienced, outstanding, accepted MBA admissions consultant. In addition, as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we have a special for webinar registrants. It's not available on the site, so write down the information here. You can take $500 off a 1 or 2 school package. The coupon code is HBS for me, or $800 off a 3+ school package. And again, the coupon code is HBS for me. This special is available through June 8th. But write down the information. And before you leave to select the service that's right for you, I'm joined by Natalie Greenblatt Epstein, and we're both happy to take your questions. Natalie has served as the admissions director at Michigan Ross, Cornell Johnson, and Arizona State. She's reviewed over 70,000 applications, interviewed over 2,500 candidates, and trained nearly 700 admissions directors and alumni volunteers to select outstanding candidates for admission. She joined Accepted in 2008 and has been helping our clients get accepted to top MBA programs, including Harvard Business School, ever since. So let's see, we got some great questions here. And actually, I think we're going to turn on our screen so they can see us, right, Natalie?
I have it on.
Okay. Oh yeah, there we are. Hi. Okay, here are the questions. Okay, here's a great question from Samantha. And if it's okay with you attendees, I would like to unmute you so that you can actually speak your question. And if we have follow-up questions, we can ask you. So Samantha, if you don't want to be unmuted, just keep yourself muted and I'll read your question, no problem. If you're willing to speak your question, you can unmute yourself.
Sure. Hi. Did that work?
Yes, it worked. Go ahead.
So my question was, should all of our examples of leadership and extracurricular involvement come from post-undergrad, or is it okay to mention significant examples from undergrad?
Natalie, you want to take that?
Yeah, I do think it's important to do both, right? So significant examples from undergrad definitely have an impact. And obviously, if you have examples post-university, then use those as well. And whatever is the most significant is what you should use. Show the most impact.
Right. I actually think it's important to start with some undergrad examples, at least one, because again, we're talking about a habit. That's Harvard's language. So if your leadership examples started a year ago, I'm not sure that's quite the habit they're looking for. And I'm not sure it's competitive because most of Harvard's admitted students will be able to show much more. Would you agree, Natalie?
Yes, I absolutely agree.
Okay,
I think
great.
I need to keep myself unmuted. I was muting myself in between so that there wouldn't be any feedback.
Okay, I think it's okay. If there's a problem, I'll let you know. All right, so, okay, let's go on. Samantha also asks, I'll tell you what, Samantha, you're muted now, great. She also asks, are you offering other sessions like this for different schools? Yes, we actually have one for Stanford already planned for July. We probably will also have for Wharton, Booth, Columbia, and perhaps INSEAD. Okay, let's see, we have one from an anonymous attendee. I've read that typical applicants for HBS have between 3 to 5 years of work experience. Is that true? And when do you recommend to apply for Harvard Business School within this period? Natalie?
Well,
I'm gonna let you start. Then I can just fill in.
Yeah, so most business schools have a sweet spot. And that is the 3 to 5 years, although that is not the full range. If you're on the younger side, maybe you're still in university, then you should think about possibly applying to their 2+2 program. And if you're on now I can draw the pictures. If you're on the other side of the bell curve, we can certainly discuss, what you would need to, to show off what you have and, what would make the most sense in terms of what your goals should be for HBS. But there is a sweet spot, and it's a bell curve, and that 2 to 5 years, it's actually around 3 to 6 is really ideal. It skews a little younger because of the 2+2 program. So that's a program for university students that who can enter the program 2 years after they've been admitted. So they can apply while they're in university, or 3 years after.
Okay. We have a question here from Serena, and she asks, how much of a successful HBS application is dependent on the student's profile versus admissions consultants coaching? That's an interesting question.
Yeah. You want to take that one and then I'll follow up?
I think that really depends a lot on the applicant. In some cases, we have applicants where we guide them and it's a fairly gentle hand. And there are other times when we know darn well there is no way that person would have gotten accepted if they had not worked with us. So it depends a little bit on the client.
I have one this year that was like that, Linda. So, and he let you know that, right? So, where, you know, I honestly, if he didn't work with me, I don't think Harvard would have given him a second thought, because he didn't know how to bring out the best in himself. He really had no idea about, you know, what his truth was and what would resonate for the schools. But, you know, you have to be your authentic self. But you also have to keep in mind that everything Linda said today is valuable. He wouldn't have known that if he hadn't been part of our process. So, and he will be going to Harvard in the fall.
That's great. Okay, wonderful. I think they're also, you know, professional writers have editors for a reason. And whenever you read a good book, with the possible exception of those written by Winston Churchill, because he was famous for not editing his work, you will see a lengthy thank you to the various editors and people who reviewed and commented on their work. So unless you're Winston Churchill, maybe you need to have that kind of guidance and feedback too. Is anybody Winston Churchill here, or like Winston Churchill? I know he died in the 1960s, but I think you get the idea. There is that part of it. And then when you have somebody providing you with that feedback, you want them to have the experience that somebody like Natalie brings to the table. So there are times when I know I've worked with clients and I felt like just a little bit of tweaking. And there are other times when I'm like, oh boy, this needs a lot. The person has the ability, that they have the qualifications. But if you recall that slide of way at the beginning of the webinar, I said, you need to have the qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. Well, we can't change your qualifications. We can tell you if you are competitive. But we can really, really help in the presentation of those qualifications. Okay, so let's go back to the questions. We've got a lot of questions here. All right, this one from Zach. How can military applicants make their applications stand out?
I would say how does anybody make their applications stand out? How do the many, many consultants make their applications stand out? So, I mean, one of the first things we do when you purchase a package is that we offer you a questionnaire, which a lot of other consultancies do as well. It takes several days to complete that questionnaire. It really takes a lot of introspection. You need to think about it. We're going to want to discuss it. And then what we will do is pick out, I love to call these the hidden gems. And you have them regardless of military service or any other kind of work experience. My husband's also a vet, and let me tell you, he's given me great advice in terms of helping my my military candidates and veterans stand out in the pool. But it's really, digging deep, having some introspection, and figuring out how you will stand out in that crowd. Going back to Linda's paradox. Did you talk about the paradox?
I did, Linda? Very briefly.
Okay.
Very briefly.
Okay. But she talks about standing out and fitting in. So fitting in because you have to meet the criteria that Harvard is looking for, but that standing out is the way we will together determine what's going to enable you to really show your unique skills and qualities and characteristics.
Okay. Here we have a question from Megan. Megan, I'm going to allow you to talk. If you want to talk, you can ask your question. And if you don't want to talk, just stay muted. Megan, you're unmuted now, so you can ask your question.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm actually just worried about the competitiveness of my application. I'm about 2 years into my working career, so I think I have some interesting hobbies, but I think you mentioned just now that community engagement of community is one of the key tenets of Harvard Business School. So I'm wondering whether I have time to kind of beef up my application now to do a bit more volunteering, or is it too late?
Are you planning to apply this cycle or next cycle? Do you want to matriculate in 2021 or later?
Maybe like 2022 or 2023.
There's time.
Yeah, exactly. You have time. Start. You can do it.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. What would your tips be for a rising senior for HBS 2+2 program?
Do you want me to take that? Yeah. Okay. I work with a lot of HBS 2+2. So, I mean, this is, again, information that would be valuable for everyone, but impact is so key, and you have the opportunity to do this while you're in school. So, you know, really think about the kinds of things that you can impact, not just in your internships, because I hope that you have an internship this summer, but also on campus. How have you made your campus better? What is the impact that you have? So think about an organization that you may be part of, and what happened prior to you starting with that organization, and what happened after you started that organization. So it's really same sort of thing. Habit of leadership should follow you throughout, and that is something they look for also in the HBS 2+2s, but it's obviously going to be limited to internships and to your community service, club activities, extracurriculars, other interests and hobbies that might be unique and really help you stand out. And then obviously, you know, academically, you also need to stand out. I would highly, highly recommend you take, I mean, you're going to have to take the GMAT or the GRE. People always do better while they're in school. So if you're looking at the 2+2, you know, you might want to think about studying for it this summer. I can't hear you, Linda. You're muted.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a couple of questions here from Henry. The first one is, I graduated with a first class and overall best student in my department, but I have a GMAT score of 610. Would you advise I reset the exam? Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Second question. What does communication look like working with accepted considering geographic distance, email only, video calls, etc.? It's definitely not email only. Where are you located, Henry? I'm not seeing Lagos, Nigeria. Okay. We've worked with many people in Nigeria. We also have, well, Natalie is in the United States, but I know she has worked with people from all around the world and all kinds of crazy hours. And we also have consultants located in Israel, Germany, and the UK. So time zone, we've worked with everybody from South Africa to Alaska, from China to Chile. I mean, you name it, we've worked with them. It's not an issue for us. Okay, let's see what else we have here. What about, this is from an anonymous attendee, what about the perspective for HBS when you're over 30?
Why don't you start?
I should start with that. I think when you're over 30, you have to be a little bit clearer about your goal. You may want to make sure that your goal is realistic. If you say you want to take an entry-level position in investment banking or in a McKinsey, Bain, Boston Consulting Group kind of company, and unemployment is high, that may not be a terribly realistic goal. On the other hand, if you're over 30 and you say you want to go back to a company that you founded or a family business, or perhaps you are sponsored, then you bring valuable experience to the table. If in your field, your age is appropriate, it's not going to be an issue. I think the goal becomes a little bit more important when you're on the higher end of that age scale. We have had clients accepted over 30 to HBS. They've done really, really well. So it can be done, but that element of realism, I think, is more important. And I think Yes, we actually, Carly just posted an article we have about applying to full-time MBA programs as an older applicant. Natalie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, there's a sweet spot, but there's also a range, and the range, you're definitely within the range. You just need to, I think, have a little bit more direction on the value proposition of why you need an MBA. So, and I think Linda covered the rest. I think, you'll be fine if you have that kind of direction.
Okay. Irina asks, how strongly does a below average GMAT score affect the application? You know what, Irina, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna unmute you, even though I asked your question. Well, you're right now.
Oh, okay. Yes. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. My basic question is how much below average? Because that makes a difference.
It's 680.
Is it balanced, or is one part worse than the other?
So I think so math quant is worse than written score. So English was 91st percentile and quant was like 70th or something to that effect.
Do you think you can raise it?
I can try.
Okay. I would say, why not? I mean, you want to have your best shot. So yeah.
I'm working towards the CFA right now, and that's
also very credible.
Mentioned that in the beginning. I was thinking maybe that can kind of prove my quant skills, but yeah.
Well, you might have work experience that also proves your quant skills.
I do.
Yeah. So, this is one of those areas where, again, I'm not sure this is the venue to really provide the advice. Natalie, do you have anything to add?
No, I was just going to say, I welcome you to contact me offline and we can talk about strategies. But, it sounds like you're very quantitatively oriented. There are certainly exceptions to the rule. There is really no rule on the GMAT, but, you want to try to get to that average score. If I recommend maybe using, if you've only taken it once, have you only taken it once?
Well, twice. So essentially, like, there's a pretty big gap, and I canceled my first score.
Okay. So I would give it another go. Maybe use a tutor, because sometimes there's just, tricks that you're not really privy to at this point that may be helpful to you. And I think it might be worthwhile, but it also sounds like you're very quantitatively oriented, and we would obviously use the optional essay to discuss it, but you don't want to give Harvard a reason to deny you. Yeah. So I would give it another go.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, great. Let's see what else we have here. We have a question in the chat window I wanted to get to. Oh, I lost it now. Okay, no problem. Carly's been posting some great resources for you that can go into greater depth than we can here. Megan asked, when should I get in touch with Accepted for a Consultation if I plan to apply in 2022, 2023? You can get in touch with us now. You can get advice from us on, all kinds of things, extracurricular activities. What would be a good extracurricular activity? Do you need to beef up anything academically? And that's an hour consultation. So check us out. There's no reason to wait. No reason to wait till you can come and say, oh, am I too late? You can do that now. Okay. Okay, I'm missing the right place here. And then I think this question is, do overrepresented minorities from other countries count as overrepresented minorities? In other words, I hold a New Zealand citizenship but was born in India. Do I count as an overrepresented minority? Natalie, your camera just turned off and you're currently muted. So if you can come back, I'm going to start taking this. Everybody's job when they apply.
Yeah, I'm back because Steve needed to go through.
Okay,
so,
no problem.
Sorry.
Everybody's job when they apply is to create themselves to be a group of one. It's harder when you come from an overrepresented group, or whether that's consultants or Indian male engineers or whatever, white males, whatever it is, whatever group you're a part of, your task is to make yourself into a group of one, a unique individual. Again, it's more difficult when you're from an overrepresented group, but it can be done. And the goal is the same whether you're from an underrepresented minority or overrepresented majority or minority. So I wouldn't worry so much about the label you're fixing on yourself as much as distinguishing yourself through your application. Okay? Certainly the fact that you're in New Zealand and have lived in New Zealand probably has given you some distinctive experiences, and that's what you're going to want to highlight in your application. Natalie, you want to add to that?
No, I completely agree. I mean, you need to find a way. Everybody needs to find a way to make themselves unique. You have a, more difficult hill to climb, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. And there's plenty of people that are in overrepresented groups that are at Harvard. So right. I try not to worry about it. Let's just find those hidden gems.
Right. As Natalie said, we'll get to hidden gems in a minute. And I think one more question from an anonymous attendee. Do you have any recommendations for a 3.1 undergrad GPA and a 750 GMAT?
How long ago was did you graduate also?
That's also a good question. I can't unmute an anonymous attendee.
Okay. Well, let me just say that there's ways to mitigate a low GPA. You can take classes now. Linda mentioned in her webinar, you can take MOOCs, you can take things like MBA Math, HBS Core. Those are all
2019. 2019.
Oh, 2019. So it was relatively recent. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I would probably suggest that you take a class or two to try to mitigate that low GPA. I have to say that to me, GPA is it's in a vacuum, because I don't think GPA is all that. It's your academic record that they're going to look at. So the school that you attended, your major, the course loads you carried, the other things you did outside of school. So the whole academic record comes into play. GPA is just like a number that's reported because that's what the rankings ask you to do. So, all right, Steve, I'm gonna.
Okay.
Sorry. You can go through now.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Everybody's home. All right, so we've already gone way over. I want to thank Natalie for sharing her deep expertise with us today. I want to thank you applicants for coming, your questions, your time, your attention, your answers. And now a final thought, a story, and then I have a question for you folks. The thought: there is a paradox. Now I'm getting to the paradox. There is a paradox inherent to acceptance at top business schools. You have to demonstrate that you both fit in and stand out. By fitting in, I mean that you belong at the target schools in terms of your goals, academics, work experience, and values. That you're going to be a valuable member of HBS's community. That you're going to, that for HBS, that means that you're showing that you have the habit of leadership, the analytical aptitude and appetite, and engaged community citizenship that HBS is looking for. And by standing out, I mean that you need to stand out in a highly qualified, intensely competitive applicant pool. You need to show that you are going to contribute distinctively, add a special something to the school's community, and make the admissions committee members proud they voted to admit you. Let me give you an example of how one of our outstanding consultants, whom you're actually quite familiar with at the moment, works with a client to successfully navigate that paradox at the heart of the admissions process. Now, I've been talking about how important distinguishing yourself is, and Natalie puts it front and center when working with her clients to HBS. She tries to unearth what she likes to call the gem or the secret sauce in her client's profile, and indeed, you referenced the gem a few minutes ago in one of your responses. So for example, with Sally, a pseudonym, that gem or secret sauce was an unusual hobby that complemented her impressive but more typical work experience. It also showed initiative, critical thinking, a sense of adventure, and yes, of course, leadership. This is Harvard. Sally's results, in her words, were, I have great news. I got accepted by 4 out of 5 schools, and one school even made a great scholarship offer. Most likely I will move to Boston, HBS in August. I couldn't be happier. Sally followed the steps on the screen. With acceptance help, with specifically Natalie's help, Sally found her secret sauce and unearthed and polished the gem inside of her. She earned her MBA at Harvard Business School. We'd love to help you discover, present, and polish the gem that's inside of you so that you can join her and become a Harvard Business School alum. Now, what question do I have for you at this point? I'll tell you. You've registered for the webinar and you've attended it. The whole thing, including the pitch and the Q&A, and you're clearly interested in what we here at Accepted have to say. So my question for those of you who are not signing up for our service is, why are you sitting on the fence in terms of working with us one-on-one? Why are you hesitating to engage with us? Can you hear me? Raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, great. All right. So again, the question is, why are you, and you can do it in the chat window, or the chat window now, I guess, is what we've been going. But why are you hesitating to engage with us? Sitting on the fence. Anybody want to share their thoughts? Everybody's waiting for somebody else to respond. Want to take the GMAT first. Excellent reason. Though I got to tell you, depending upon how far ahead you are, it can be good to at least have a preliminary call before even you take the GMAT. When is your GMAT, Victor? Um, 2 weeks online GMAT. Okay, that's coming pretty close. You focus on the GMAT study and then call us afterwards, okay? Megan says she's never used an admissions service before. Well, it's high time you start. Again, professional writers have editors and advisors for a reason. I don't think most of you are professional writers, and you can probably use it too. And you certainly don't have the experience that we would bring to the table. And you don't want to have that experience either, because we've done it hundreds and thousands of times. Have to get a good GRE score first. Okay, that makes sense. Sometimes it can pay to contact us before you get your score. Though I can understand, and I think that waiting till you get the score does make a lot of sense. It's like if you're a year or so ahead, then contact us, and we can advise you how to work on other elements of your profile in addition to this test score. If you're just before applying, then yeah, okay, then get that good GMAT or GRE, and we look forward to working with you when you get that score. Let us know how you do. Anybody else have anything here? Too expensive. Well, if you're concerned about the cost, think about the expensive risks of not working with Accepted. Somebody wrote too expensive. Right? There are all kinds of costs associated with not working with Accepted. There's a possibility of rejection, which means reapplication. There's a possibility that you could have gotten into a better school with better lifelong earning potential. That can be a lot. And there's a potential that you would get a scholarship if your application was more polished, a scholarship that you don't have to apply for separately. So there's lots of benefits, financial benefits, that can come from an investment in Accepted services. All right. And with that, I want to thank you very much for coming. participating. You've been a great, great audience. Thank you, Natalie, again for your participation. Really appreciate your involvement.
Thank you for having me.
And Carly, could you just post Natalie's contact page? I don't know if you did it already, but maybe you can do it one more time. You're most welcome, Daniel, Alex. If anybody wants to contact Natalie, you can do it through her page, and obviously, where you can get the special accepted.com/MBA package. You're very welcome. Irina, there's Natalie's bio, and the contact page is right there. Okay, so you folks have a very good evening or day. Henry, it's probably close to 2:30 now for you, and you're very, very welcome. Good luck with your application. Good luck with your tests, and we look forward to working with you.